Hello, everybody. This is Joe Carlton and Rick Brusuelas from the Sports Affiliation's Thursday Checkdown. Tonight we are discussing early thoughts on one of the more hotly debated topics, where Patrick Mahomes will rank among quarterbacks in 2025. We both have a different point of view on the question, so Rick, why don't you share your thoughts first?
You bet. And actually, the timing's real good. In fact, just today, CBS analyst and noted Kansas City fan Keith Cummings just came up with some of his own thoughts on this, and I think I share them as well. He actually points to the last 9 games of the season where Patrick Mahomes had a good bump in performance. He had 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Those last 9 games also coincided when Xavier Worthy really started to take off as his primary wide receiver. So if you were to extrapolate those last 9 games over the entirety of the 2025 season, you could project that Mahomes is going to have over 4,300 yards, 34 passing touchdowns, 317 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And so if you were to then change that to fantasy points, that's going to for sure get you into 20 to 24 fantasy points per game. And that's even with the fewer than 40 passing attempts per game. So why do we expect those to happen? Well, first and foremost, his favorite target, Rashee Rice, returns. Rice had over 930 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns in his rookie year in 2023. Of course, 2024 was impacted by injuries and also an anticipated suspension, but he for sure will be back in 2025. And even though the suspension looms over him, he'll definitely get a chance to play. There's also questions about Hollywood Brown returning after an injury-plagued season, but even though he's a free agent, I suspect he will be back with the team. So if you look at the rest of the Kansas City receivers, well, Hopkins likely gone, Justin Watson likely gone, Sky Moore likely gone. But even with those departures, a receiving crew of Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy will be the best wide receiver trio that Mahomes has had the chance to pass to. I also think Kelsey's going to be back. He has 1 more year in his contract, and he really has come alive during the playoffs. So if you look at his playoff performance, he had 136 yards, which was first on the team. He had 68 yards after the catch, which is also first on the team. He had 3 receptions of over 15 yards, and that tied for first for the Chiefs, and he had a touchdown. So if he does come back, he all of a sudden will have a lot of targets in the middle of the field as the other wide receivers clear out. And even if Kelsey doesn't return, you've got Noah Gray waiting in the waiting room. So I think that, is a pretty good chance that Mahomes will be up in the upper tier of quarterbacks. I don't rank players, especially so early, but I do have him in the second tier of quarterbacks. I have, of course, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jaden Daniels in tier 1. And I have Mahomes, Burrow, and Hurts in tier 2. Where he falls within that tier 2 is anyone's guess. Burrow's probably up in the top unless he loses Higgins. But, again, you're talking about a quarterback 4, 5, or 6 position, which I think is pretty decent. So it's a good chance to go out and try to grab him, especially if you're looking at from a fantasy point of view, because I think his value is probably going to be a bit depressed, but I'm expecting big things next year. Why don't you tell us why I'm wrong?
Well, I don't necessarily think you're wrong, Rick. I'm just a little bit less optimistic as you are. I also think that his draft cost isn't going to go down at all. I think he's going to be around the same fifth round I don't think he falls any further than the 5th, maybe the 6th round if you're lucky. But I have him actually in my 3rd tier, if I'm ranking by tiers. He leads the tier, though. I have him behind Burrow, Hurts, and Bo Nix as well. For me, it starts with how the Kansas City Chiefs play football. They are built around an elite defense, and Patrick Mahomes really doesn't have to overexert himself, and he can be more of a game manager than a gunslinger. When it comes to passing attempts, the volume is there for Mahomes. He finished number 2 in pass attempts in 24 and number 2 in red zone pass attempts. The Chiefs as a team also were number 10th in the league in pass attempts per game. Despite the high volume, Mahomes only managed to finish QB9 in fantasy points per game. This is mainly because of a lack of a true downfield threat. Mahomes' deep ball stats are just putrid. He was quarterback 34 in deep ball completion percentage, quarterback 36 in air yards per attempt at just 6.2 yards. He is just not getting the ball downfield, and when he does go downfield, they are just not quality downfield targets. His deep ball catchable rate also ranked 25th in the NFL. What is also alarming to me is that Mahomes had 10 games, 10 games where he had less than 2 passing touchdowns. That means he had 1 or 0 passing touchdowns 10 times. As long as they don't have a true downfield deep threat target, we are going to continue to see less explosive plays and more of a dink and dunk approach. This limits his ceiling and provides more of a steady floor than the big spike weeks we come to expect from a player we're drafting as a top 5 quarterback. And that's basically it. We will be recording more of these quick both sides of the coin videos in the future. Be sure to check us out at the Sports Affiliation on YouTube, where we host a Thursday checkdown at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.